Now this is going to be very weird, but this is actually the first Volvo that I have reviewed that I am not entirely sold on, and that has all to do with this interior. I am not a fan of this interior one bit. We're going to talk about that more in a minute. I do like the exterior design. It has a very confident look to it, Scandinavian chiselness, simpleness when it comes in to the exterior design, and we have this moss yellow color. Very unusual for a Swedish car. I guess you can go back to the Volvo EX30 for example, the wagon, which also came in this sort of yellow color. This, you can't get it in this color anymore because they discontinued it. So 2025 model year, they did this color for about a year, and then they just dropped it for, I don't know what the reason was. You got 422 horsepower in this, so it is a very quick vehicle. The range, not the best, 243 miles of range, but the design of this, it has clearly, this is a product design inspired exterior. I think it looks way more like a consumer electronics product, but I'm okay with that because the proportions look spot on for an EV. So we're gonna have a look at this design from front, side, and rear, and also, of course, we need to talk about this interior and also the software that I just don't understand why Volvo did it this way. Gonna talk about that later in the video, but let's start with the beautiful exterior of this EX30, and let's start with the front end design. The 2025 Volvo EX30 is powered by dual motors, got all-wheel drive, of course, 69 kilowatt-hour battery pack. You got 422 horsepower, 400 pound-feet of torque. It's connected to a 1-speed automatic transmission. 0 to 60, 3.4 seconds. The range is not the best, 243 miles of range. And the price as this one is tested comes out to $48,395. Now, what's going on here with the front end design of the EX30? We do have some black graphics with the headlight unit right here. Full LED, of course, Storz hammer in a new design with all these small pixelated lights internally of the headlight. I do like that we have the headlight unit right here and not bumper headlights in the lower section. Full LED headlights as well. Completely covered up front end with the Volvo logo in the middle. Front mounted camera right there as well. You have the cooling for the battery all the way down low in the lower section, and parking sensors integrated in this black strip that we have going on here. You also have some air funnels right here on the side that are actually functional. I think it's a clean design, but it definitely lacks this fluidity that I personally want to see in when it comes to automotive design and separated from product and industrial design. But again, it still has a very clear identity to it. There's no mistaking this for anything else than a Volvo. Now, one thing about this headlight unit that I would like to change, you see these corners right here and this corner up here. I want to create a radius for these corners, and I also think that this headlight unit clashes with this graphic in the bottom because this then shoots right up and crashes right into the headlight unit. I want to have a much smoother transition between these two key pieces in the front end, because these are essentially the only two graphic features that you have that sticks out in the front end, and specifically when you have it in this yellow color that we have right here. But the design is here, the identity is here with the Storz hammer design. We also have Volvo on the side looking pretty cool. And of course, having this be full LED is going to be recognizable as a Volvo, both at daytime and also at night. Looking up top on the hood design and the design that we have right here, I do like this scooped up portion that we have going on here that wraps around, creating almost like a chamfer inside of the hood itself. It also connects with this line right here going all the way up to the A-pillar. Blacked out side mirrors, which I think looks great. The two-tone with the black roof and the black side mirrors, and in addition, of course, to the black graphics that we have in the front end. So the front end design, to me, very simplistic, but that is also exactly what we want for a Scandinavian design. Now, when you look at this from a side view, it might look like a bigger vehicle than it actually is. This is actually smaller than a Kia Niro. It's very hard to imagine that because of the boxy shapes that we have going on. We have 19-inch wheels, typical EV wheels, where everything is essentially all covered up, to 45mm wide tires all around. You can see the black graphics in the lower section that houses the battery pack is all covered up right here. I do think this is a good idea because if everything here would be yellow, it would look like a much heavier design. And I do like that this portion around the wheel arches is still in the body color, but the only black piece is going to be where the battery sits in the lower section. You can also see EX30 right here, and a very nice swooping roofline going downwards to the beautiful looking taillights that we're going to have a look at in a minute. So overall, the proportions of this looks very chiseled, a lot of beautiful chamfers going on. We also have, again, carved out portion in this area to remove some of this volume that we have in the lower section and make it feel like a much more nimbler design. From this angle that you're looking at it from right now, you can see just how abruptly the rear end is just cut off, and the proportions very compact and tight. One detail I've always loved about Volvos ever since the XC40 is this area right here, because we have a nice muscle that wraps around into the side view right here. And you also have, again, EX30 black roof, but this creates a nice planted look. And we also have a carved out portion here, a line that follows the exact outline of the tires, creating these rounded shapes above the wheel arches, adding some more plantedness and muscle to this design. You also have the charging port right here. Open this up, and that is, of course, where you plug in your charger. No electric motors for the openings. I don't want to see that, specifically not in this price range. Just keep it simple and keep it easy and reliable. Now coming around to the rear view, and this is by far my favorite view for this vehicle. I do like the tail end design a lot better than I do like the front end, because I think the graphics flow better. And remember what I said about the sharp corners in the front end? What I wanted to see in the front is actually happening here in the back, because here we have a radius with the connection of the black line right here. You have a radius going into the taillight unit. That is all I wanted to see with the connection with the front end design. Full LED taillights here as well, with a new design for Volvo, meaning that this part is actually separating the key taillight features. The top taillight up here and the lower section for the taillight, with two strips going all around here. You have the parking sensors integrated in the lower section of the bumper all the way down here. Blacked out graphics in the lower section. And it looks like a very sporty design. I can see this be lowered, sitting on some nice looking wheels and looking like a proper fun hot hatchback design if we just switch out a couple of things with this when it comes to the stance of this vehicle. I don't know how to turn the lights on this vehicle, so what I'm going to do is just press the brake pedal so you can see the design of the taillight unit back there, looking pretty cool with the LEDs in my opinion. And I think that is a very interesting design from Volvo. Still has a lot of this industrial or product design feel to consumer electronics vibe that you have for a lot of EVs today. I do think that comes back with this Volvo as well. I do like the line flow that we have going on in the rear end and how the taillight unit is integrated in the overall volumes of the rear end. Now, when you think about it, Volvo has always been sort of a boxy design, going back to the 240, specifically the 740. Essentially, you could design that car with a ruler, a couple of lines, boom, you have yourself a 740, specifically the wagon, 2-box design, the sedan, 3-box design. So I understand that Volvo is still going to be a pretty boxy design, just like we have here. But let me know what you think about this new direction from Volvo, going into this more product design feel and moving away from this emotional design that we have for a couple of years. I would say in the mid-2010s going up to 2016. And now, as you can see, we got a lot more static features and also the LEDs coming back in the rear end, which, again, I think suits this vehicle. But at the same time, I can't help but think that I want to see a little bit more fluidity in Volvo's design. Now, opening up the tailgate, you might wonder where is the button for the tailgate unit. You can't really see it anywhere here, but it's actually located right here in the middle, right in the middle of this black graphics. Press that button right there and it's going to open up the trunk. Now, in this case, I think it's a pretty big trunk for what this vehicle is. As I said, it's smaller than a Kia Niro, but you still get plenty of space back here. That is, of course, the huge benefit when we're talking about boxy designs. There's really not a lot going on here. You don't have any sort of LEDs or connections back here, but you do have a storage underneath the floor, which you can put a lot more stuff if you need to. So we talked about the exterior design, and now it's time to jump in and have a look at what is going on with this interior from Volvo for the EX30. First of all, I mean, the minimalist look that we have in here, not a huge fan of what's going on. I can see Volvo being, minimalist. They want to keep things to a very simple layout for the design, but this is just going too far in that direction. Look at the door panel here. Some hard touch material with some very interesting texture. I'm not sure if I like this texture right here. Beautiful looking door handle though. The design of this looks very, very clean. You have a soft touch material for the armrest and some storage in the lower section, but everything here is hard touch or just solid plastic except for the armrest. We have very confusing controls for the seats. The seats themselves looks pretty nice. I don't have anything bad to say about the seats. I think they look clean, very, very comfortable as always in every single Volvo. Now these controls, very weird controls. These essentially controls everything about the seats. You just have to change what function the setting has. And you do that in the software or just pressing this button right here. I'm going to show you that right now. So let's jump in here and check this out. I mean, there's really nothing that you can appreciate in here when it comes to the design and the materials, the smells, the feel. You still have the hard touch plastic all around here. This is not really hard touch, but it's pretty solid still. It's just, you know, minimalist design. I'm all for it, but as I said before with Volvos, they always been good at making extremely minimalist interiors, but still has a personality to it. In this case, I think Volvo has completely lost the personality aspect to the interior. And then the climate settings that we have in here is just too confusing. You go into the fan speed right here, for example. So you have to click the fan first of all, and then you can change the fan speed right here. And you also have the controls for the max AC, max defroster, rear defroster inside of the software itself. You have air quality here. You can see the air quality on the inside of the vehicle. You have heated seats in 3 different levels, which is great to see. Also heated steering wheel right here in 3 different levels. Both the passenger, of course, and the driver. But would it be too much to ask to put these climate settings as a small bar in the lower section with just physical toggles? It would be, first of all, a lot safer than having to go in here and switch the fan speed by having to press 2 different presses on the screen before you can actually go in and change this. And also the temperature control, it goes in increments of 2, so you can't really have 63 degrees here. You can't have it in a Volvo. You gotta have 64 or 66. You cannot have 65. Okay, that's just Volvo's way of doing things. Going to the home screen here, you do have the Google Maps, of course. Navigation is fine, but I am not able to connect my phone through wireless CarPlay in the EX30. That is definitely something I want to have in pretty much every single vehicle for 2025. It just makes sense. So just give me wireless Apple CarPlay and I'll be happy. And now the screen itself is pretty responsive, as you can see. We can go into the drive settings here. And another thing that is extremely annoying is that every single time you start up this vehicle, you have to go in here and turn these off. So the driver alert, I need to turn that off every single time. And lane keep 8, I need to turn that off. But that doesn't mean that as soon as you come close to the edge of a line in the road, the steering wheel is still going to start shaking, which is also annoying since it is off. And one pedal driving in this vehicle is actually not one pedal driving. It barely slows down when you let off the gas. Why? Just add more regen braking to your EVs and get more sauce back to the battery when you're letting off the gas. Specifically, if you have a specific button for it that says that this is what I want to have. I'm going to show you that when we go for a drive later on. You have ambient lighting here, different sort of themes that you can have going on. Ambient lighting right here, you can barely see it now because of course it is daytime. Going in again to the car status, we can check that out. Everything seems to be okay. Tire pressure, trip info, settings. Right here you can go in and change the settings for the drive modes. And here you also have, let's see, you do have lane keep 8 is also off here. But again, as I said, it doesn't matter if these are off. It's still going to start vibrating when you get close to for example, if you're going to overtake, the steering will just start vibrating, which is, of course, not something you want if you have these settings off. Now, if you have the steering feel in soft, it has this spaghetti steering. It is extremely, almost uncomfortably light steering when you have it in soft. So I 100% want to have it in firm. You can toggle between performance, all-wheel drive on and off, hill descent control, traction control on and off right there. And one pedal driving, as you can see, is in fact enabled right now. So we're going to see how that works when we take this for a drive. You have more controls here, for example, the fog light, adjust the side mirrors. You do that inside of the wipers, inside of the software, and then you use these buttons right here to move the mirror up and down. As you can see, we're doing that right now on the side right there. So again, it would be a lot simpler to just have all the controls regularly here. Same goes for the window controls. Like, how do I open the window? How do I turn down the window? You don't do that on the door itself. Instead, you do that right here. So these are the toggles for the windows up and down, right in the middle. And if you want to do that for the rear passengers, you actually use the same buttons. You just have to click this button, which is actually not a button. You have to sort of press it pretty hard. And then now this is controlling the rear windows. If you wonder where the cup holders are, actually located right here. So you just pop this out and you get one cup holder, two cup holders. You can slide this back and forth if you want cup holders, or if you want storage, totally up to you. And then you press it back, it goes back one step, press it back one more time, and it goes back all the way. Now, you can't open up the armrest, but you do, in fact, have a bit of storage underneath the armrest. It's just not able to open it from the top right here. Now, looking at the air vent design, this is one detail that I actually like about the EX30. If we're gonna, we're not gonna be completely negative about this car interior, but this, with this beautiful line right here, this sort of plexiglass design looking very, very nice, and also looks like a blade design for the air vents themselves. I think that looks very clean. You have the wireless charging pad here, just one side. The other side does not have the wireless charging pad. This is what the key looks like. It's actually just a square like this, which you put on outside of the A pillar, this card. The B pillar, and that is how you open and lock the vehicle. And this is also very interesting. If you want to have storage, more storage, you have some more storage underneath here, underneath these flaps. And that also shows you the two USB-Cs that we have going on. You can remove this and clean this if you want to take this out and clean it at some point. Very unique for sure, interior, but I think it's almost too unconventional, specifically when everything is located inside of the software itself. It feels too unsafe as well to having to go into the software to just make some basic changes to the climate settings. That has never made sense to me. You do have the Harman Kardon sound system. You see the big speaker up top there. Now, looking at the steering wheel, very basic looking steering wheel. I actually do like the design of the steering wheel. It looks pretty clean. I would like to have a gauge cluster here. This is actually the driver monitor system right here. This is what tells you. So everything here, you can see that to change anything, the climate settings, you need to look down and you need to actually go in and do that right here. But when you do that while you're driving, it's going to shout at you up here to driver, pay attention to the road, because it's looking at you from this camera or sensor. And that doesn't make sense. If Volvo does not want me to fiddle around with these settings here while I'm driving, which I have to do since that's the only place I can do that from. But when I do that, it tells me to not do that and pay attention to the road. I mean, it just does not make sense. But looking at the steering wheel here, some buttons right here for the voice command and also the radio settings. And you have some settings here to customize the information up top on the infotainment screen with this button. In addition to the cruise control settings, you have the washer located right here. You see these two buttons here. Press that one. It's going to spray some right there. Indicator, same stock as well. And the drive selector on the right side right there. And that is pretty much it for the front end design of the interior. We also, of course, have the big moonroof here that you have no shade for, but it's fine because this is pretty heavily tinted. So with that said, let me know if you think this is the way to go with car interiors. I know this is the direction we're heading in. Extremely minimalist designs, and is not the direction, as I've said so many times before, that I personally want to see for car interiors. Well, let's jump into the back and let's check out the space back here. I should have plenty of space, even though this is a pretty small vehicle. I do like the door handle situation that we have, similar to what we have in the front end. Also soft touch material, some storage in the lower section, and you have a little bit of storage on the sides of the seats. So let's jump in here behind my own driving position. And actually, it is very, very tight back here. Surprisingly tight. So if you have a big family and you're looking to buy a Volvo EV, this might not be the car for you if you need to have adults in the back, because as you can see, this is extremely tight. I'm being 6'1", 6'2". Not a very comfortable position to be in for a longer period. But you do have the window controls here. Interesting design for these. Buttons up and down, and you also have two USB-Cs. And here you can see more clearly the storage that is actually hidden underneath the arm, as you can see that right there. We don't have any cup holders back here, though. So you can't fold down this center portion to create an armrest. But thankfully, we still have one of the most important features of Volvo interiors, and that is the Swedish flag right there on the seat. All right, guys, 422 horsepower, 400 pound-feet of torque. Volvo EX30 2025 model year in moss yellow. 0 to 60 in about 3.4 seconds. So it is a pretty quick EV, like every single EV these days. I mean, power is not a problem, and never been a problem with EVs. The only problem is the personality of the vehicle, and this does not just lack personality in the interior. I also feel like the Volvo did not really specifically make it a very exciting EV to drive. It feels like the generic EV driving experience. But on top of that, if I let off the gas now, you can see that we're not really slowing down. I mean, we are, of course, rolling the rolling resistance, but I want to see a lot more regen braking. I have it enabled right here, one pedal drive, and now, of course, the lane keep assist and driver alert came on here since I restarted the vehicle, even though I toggled them off in my last driving session. So let's forward here. It definitely goes. That's not the problem here with this vehicle. It's not how fast or slow it is. It is a very fast vehicle, and thankfully also have all-wheel drive, putting it down the 422 horsepower to all four wheels. But check this out. If I, for example, now want to, I feel like it's maybe getting a little cold in here. I want to increase the temperature. That means that since I can't feel my way, there's no buttons here, I have to actually exactly put my finger on this 60 right here. And then it says focus on driving, stay attentive and avoid distraction, because I wanted to change the climate settings. I mean, it's just mind-blowing to me, this design. This is not going in the right direction when it comes to intuitive design, safe design, and good-looking design. It's just crazy how they what direction we're moving in when it comes to car interiors. Again, want to change the temperature right here, and it says I can't do that because I need to focus on the driving. So I have to stay cold in here at all times. I am not allowed to change the climate settings in a Volvo EX30 unless I pull over and stop the car, and then I can probably change it safely. So let's come to a stop here. There is no one behind me right now. Let's really quickly come to a stop, and let's do 0 to 60 in 3.4 seconds. Here we go. Oh, all right. I mean, the power is definitely there. This is the same 0 to 60 time as the Blazer SS EV I just reviewed as well, and that has close to 200 horsepower more than this, which means that this is a pretty light. I would expect it to be. I mean, I would assume it is pretty light, since it does the same 0 to 60 time as the Blazer EV with 200 more horsepower. So they really use the power well in this EX30. I give them that. But I think they could have maybe reduced the power a little bit, saved some money there, and added some physical buttons for the climate settings instead. Another thing that's great about this Volvo EX30 is the ride quality. It's just very, very comfortable. Like pretty much every EV, so smooth. The power delivery is smooth as well. The range, not the best. This is probably a vehicle you don't want to buy if you're going on longer road trips pretty often, frequently, or if you have a long commute to work. The range, 243 miles, definitely not class leading, to say the least. But if you're just using this car to, commute back and forth to work within town, for example, then this might be an option for you, because I do think the exterior styling is still, it's a very, very, the exterior design for me for this, it feels very confident. It has a it knows exactly what it wants to be when you look at this vehicle. That goes for every single Volvo. There is no ambiguity in its design. Every line serves a purpose, and I do think that's going on here with this Volvo EX30 as well. Typical Scandinavian styling, you want to have it be as minimal as possible, but still retain a personality, which I think they did with the exterior design, but they totally failed when it comes to that for the interior design. So let's come onto the highway here. Let's floor it again. Let's do it. And we're up to 70 there very, very quickly. Cruising on the highway, merging into traffic. No problems at all with this type of torque and this type of acceleration. And again, it's very quiet. I really don't hear any sort of wind noise. And I don't necessarily hear a lot of road noise either. It's the build quality is still great with Volvos. And that goes for this EX30 as well. I would probably not mind driving this for a long time. The only problem is I would be so bored because I have nothing to appreciate in this interior, because there's really nothing that stands out in this interior. It's too minimal for me. So how can we sum up this Volvo EX30? I understand that they wanted to keep the price point down, which is why we have hard touch materials all over this interior with some very cheap looking texture. I don't like this texture either. I would like to have some more wood, maybe some metal texture instead of this. But I understand they want to keep the price point low and minimize cost, meaning reducing buttons and also having the same buttons here. For example, for the window controls, 2 buttons. You just have to choose if they're going to control the back windows or the front windows, stuff like that. That saves a lot of money over time. Or, you know, small changes like that builds up and saves a lot of money for the end consumer. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that we need to strip down of all the personality that I want to see, specifically in the interior design. The exterior, though, looks great, even though we do have more of a product design feel, industrial design feel for this exterior nowadays. But Volvo is still having a clean, chiseled exterior, thankfully. And overall, it's not a vehicle that I personally would buy myself. I would 100% go for the V60 plug-in hybrid if I were to buy a Volvo today. One of my favorite Volvos of all time. But if you're just commuting around town, as I said, this might be an option for you. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.